This is happiness, to be everything at once. Be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unburned.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of Mood Prep. My name is Dave Nixon. Today we're going to go into the antidote to nihilism. I actually wanted to call this something else to begin with, but I couldn't quite figure out what to call it, as in, instead of nihilism. Basically, it was like antidote to consciousness, but it wasn't consciousness itself. It was the sick feeling we get when we first get exposed to our first chunk of consciousness. If you've ever been through this and you live in your life and all of a sudden you come across a teacher, some sort of learning, some sort of something, seminar, workshop, movie, doesn't matter what it is, podcast, anything. And it's the first exposure you get to true awareness or consciousness on some level, right? And there are significant levels based on the work that some giants in the psychological industry and spirituality industries have worked on. And we get this moment where we sort of we step out of this square, this cube that we have programmed ourselves to exist in for so long, and we start to see things with a different lens. And it's like, hang on a second. This idea that maybe human beings won't be here in 200 years at all, like the potentiality of that, like the fact that all the books that you've read, that I've read, that all those things that have taken years to build, like your fucking uni degree, like it just won't mean anything. There will be no humans. Imagine that as an idea, right? At some point in the future, maybe millions of light years away, but let's say something happens within 200 years, it's all gone, done. Like this idea of, we're actually having, we're a spirit having a human experience. We're more than just a human body, but we're experiencing it as a human in a socially constructed world. Not everything, but a lot of things. We're just these crazy monkeys trying to figure out an urban jungle based upon laws that we've all made up and shook hands on, that a lot of them are outdated, right? And then there's bias within that. You start to see this and you step back and you start to go, what the fuck? Like, hang on a second. And there's this sick feeling. And I've gone with the idea of calling it nihilism today, and I'm going to expand on that in a moment. But the little bit of awareness and consciousness, this is why so many people reject it, because it's just too fucking frightening. But if we accept it, that little bit makes us fucking sick. And that's where nihilism comes in. Right, and if you want to look at the idea of nihilism, I first came across nihilism really in my learnings through Jordan Peterson. And I'll talk about old mate Mr. Peterson a little bit, but let's just get this out of the way. If you're listening and you think that he hates feminists, or that he's just wants, females to cook food and all that kind of bullshit, it's not him at all. I highly suggest that you spend a lot more time looking into his stuff. He's not the only person you should listen to. I don't agree with everything that the guy says. However, he has helped install traditional values into a lot of people that weren't brought up with them. And as a greater society, that's going to allow us to progress further forward. And those traditional values isn't this idea of men should have this role and women should have this role. It's this idea of we are innately human, and we have differences and we have similarities. And let's look at what the research says and, move forward from there. And he talked about nihilism and also existential nihilism, and it really encouraged me after reading his book. And I would have listened to upwards of 100 hours of his content over the last just under 12 months. It's about, I would have easily done over 2 hours a week for somewhere around 40 weeks. And either way, what I'm getting at there, it's like, I had to do more research. So listening to people like him and a lot of other guys that are just significantly smarter than myself allowed me to go through and read books that I wouldn't have otherwise read, and also challenge myself in learning and understanding, not just knowing words and phrases, but understanding what it really means. And so to steal, from old mate Google for a moment, to give you an idea of nihilism, if you're not familiar with it, it's the rejection of all religious and moral principles in the belief that life is meaningless. So when we first become aware around all the things that I mentioned earlier, it's like, well, what the fuck's the point? Like, everything's going to decay and rot away anyway, and human beings are only speeding the process up for poor animals. We should just end it. So there's that kind of nihilistic, meaningless life that sometimes that awareness can bring. And so the only antidote for this, is more awareness, is more consciousness, is reading great texts, is constantly challenging your current frame of thinking, is speaking to individuals that are on a completely different level, and to challenge a way that we view the world, the mind, the body, the soul, everything. And the reason being is that we're trying, there's so many of us that want to, grow and develop, but keep our same thinking because it's just our fucking ego trying to hold on to the shit that knows it's safe. And I want to be right, but I want to develop. It's like you don't get to be right and develop at the same time. You got to be wrong a fucking lot in order to be developed. You got to be able to shed off the bullshit you hold on to if you really want to grow. And that's the lies about yourself, the lies about what you think your parents, you got to please your parents with your career. Like, what happens when they die? What are you going to do then? You still just going to write them notes to the fucking grave? Like, you proud of me still, Dad? Like, we got to be able to understand that we ourselves are living a human life and we choose our own human conditions. And the further that we can continually really dig deep into the shit that really matters and see that the only thing in existence that matters is actually this moment right now. And that's what it means to be able to understand presence. And that's what it means to understand the truth of a moment is to actually be there and understand that you don't get this moment again. You don't get to relive your 20s again. I mean, the amount of times I say this, but it's just the reality of the situation. And so for us to really understand and move forward off nihilism, we really have to read some of the great texts. We have to look back in history, then utilize the knowledge of those people to build a better future, not based off their knowledge, but integrate the wisdom of those people. I recommend readings by Ken Wilber. That's somebody who is extremely intelligent in using, the mind, the body, and the spirit as an integrated approach to understanding one's development. And where he comes from with a lot of his stuff is the idea that everything is effectively right and incomplete. And when we can look at ourselves and realize that incompleteness is the parts where we're technically wrong if we're just stubborn and stuck on our rightness or righteousness, if you want to think of it like that. So when we can shed that away, when we can peel that off and we can accept that in order to truly develop and truly move through this nihilistic illness to true meaningness, true purpose, to live a purposeful life. Like, most people don't realize that they've subconsciously chosen their purpose to still just try and please anyone that represents as their father, an authoritative figure. And so it pulls them apart whenever they get fired by, hypothetically, let's use an example, like a male, because they don't realize, they think that they're letting down this authoritative figure, which is actually representing as their father, but they're not doing something they want to do anyway. It's understanding yourself in a world that is connected, and it's being able to make decisions based off what's important to you. But we have to do the work personally, not just listen to this podcast. That's a good fucking start. That was the whole idea. But do the work. And this is why I invite people to accept the idea of frame learning, a book, a workshop, a seminar, a qualification, certification, whatever it is, something that's got a beginning and an end and a middle, right? That's frame learning. But then grabbing that learning and applying it in the moment is called flow learning, right? And when we move into flow learning, that's when we really truly unravel and see things in reality that we can pick apart and learn and develop. And that's where we grow. And we first grow by removing the bullshit that we hold on to. All of that heaviness can just leave. We move through nihilism into true purpose. And it's work. It really is work. But I tell you what, carrying around a whole heap of shit, it's weighing you down. We're already working. We're just not getting the outcome we want. So make a decision. Team, that's it. I'm out. Thank you very much for tuning into today's podcast. If you haven't already, jump on Facebook and jump in the conversation there, Mood Prep Online. Simply just search Mood Prep Online and ask to be a part of the group. If you're a PT or a trainer or an athlete, then check out the Coaches Circle. There's a couple of changes happening with that very shortly. You should be able to trial for a free month soon. Otherwise, check it out. I would love to have a chat to you about it. And also, I have 2 more seminars coming up for the back end of this year, and then that's it. Connected Coaching and my 3-day intensive, both in Canberra. But that's it. I'm done. Thank you very much for tuning in. And as always, I haven't said it yet, but if you did find this podcast beneficial, it would mean the world to me if you'd pass it on to someone else that you think would also find it beneficial. And then, until tomorrow, peace and pizza, kick today in the dick, slay the dragon. I'll see you soon.